Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Basics Podcast where we are taking a deep dive into plant based nutrition. I'm Emily, this is Dawn. Before we dive into today's topic, which is calorie density, brief introduction. Again, my name is Emily Gregory. I am the founder and owner of Meatless Meals LLC, focused on plant based nutrition coaching and fitness training. Kind of taking a step back from that, focused on some other projects, but I still want to share my knowledge, which is why Dawn and I are here. Dawn, would you like to do a quick introduction?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Dawn Hutchins. I'm the founder of a company called Veggie Cooking, and we teach plant-based cooking for weight loss and management, vitality and long-term health. We do a lot of work with families. And then I also am director of plant-based nutrition for a large company in California. And we have about 7,000 employees. And I run a wellness program in collaboration with the Plant Strong by Metabite team. So that has been really amazing. And then I also have a background as a plant-based chef, and I'm working on my personal training certification. So I always am going to Emily to get tips and stuff. So I think we're a good team.
Yes, very similar passion for nutrition and fitness. So great pair. And like I said, today we're going to be talking about calorie density. So is this a possible trick to eating more and weighing less? We will find out
Yes.
today. I was going to say, Dawn, do you want to start us off kind of giving us a description on what calorie density is?
Yes. So calorie density, there's two different ways you can look at it. So we have a chart that we will put up, and it's going to show you for the same volume of food, how many calories are in that food. And so one of the things we usually ask people when we're in our wellness program is, what do you notice about this chart? And so usually people notice that oil is actually the highest in calorie density. So in our last meeting, we talked about why whole food plant-based, we really try to minimize oil as much as possible because it's so dense in calories and fat and does not really register at all as far as your satiety goes. So
Yeah.
you could put 4 tablespoons of oil in your meal and you're not going to feel any more full than if you put no calorie or no tablespoons of oil.
Yeah.
So that is just something to be aware of. And when you look at the low side for the same volume of food, you're going to be able to eat the most vegetables, fruit, whole grains, legumes, and then interestingly, pasta is right there. And the reason for that is because it's full of water, and we really recommend the whole grain pasta. So it's also full of fiber and protein. And then the legume-based pasta is even filled with even more protein.
Mhm.
So those are really my favorites for that. So I don't know. What would you add to that, Emily, the calorie density?
Yeah, I would say, with when people think of like diet, they think of restriction and being hungry. And with the whole food plant based lifestyle, I know that is not the point whatsoever. We want to be full. And the idea with calorie density is it's exciting. It's like you can feel full, you can eat a large quantity of food, but your calories are lower than, eating what you would have been eating before. And, in order to lose weight, it is kind of a balance of calories in versus calories out. And,
Mhm.
it's like I personally don't count calories. I know that you normally don't count calories either. But it's like, it's something to be aware of. So when we think of calorie density, that's building that awareness of realizing what foods are higher in calories, which ones are lower. And
Mhm.
luckily, a lot of whole food plant based foods are low in calories. Of course, there are some that are higher in calories and higher in fat, and you just want to be cautious of not eating too many of those. And I know
Yeah.
that I have some notes, we were going to talk about this later, but I might as well mention it now, like avocados,
Yes.
coconut. I mean, there's certain things that are higher in fat and calories, so it's not to say you can't eat it, just being mindful of it.
Yes. And so usually we'll tell people you don't have to measure anything on the left side. So your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, your legumes, like you don't even need to, you can eat as much as you want of that.
Yeah.
Where we do sometimes recommend measuring is if you are looking to lose weight, I would measure something like peanut butter, do a quarter of an avocado, really try to minimize the coconut oil. It's high in saturated fat. Really try to minimize your oil. So if you're going to cook with oil, really all you need is just you could even do a teaspoon of oil. You can dry saute vegetables without any oil at all. And you're just adding, you could just, add a little bit of water or broth or just the dry vegetables release a lot of water, and then just seasonings. And you won't even notice if you're making a soup, if you're sauteing, doing a stir fry, you don't even notice. You may want to use a tiny bit if you're roasting vegetables. But another way to look at this is if you're eating the same number of calories, how much volume of food could you eat? So to eat more to weigh less, you think about, okay, 500 calories, you could eat a large fry from McDonald's, or you could eat 16 cups of broccoli. So for the same 500 calories. So when you're eating these whole plant foods, they're full of the fiber and water. So they're filling up your stomach, and really making you feel full. And you don't even realize you're eating like very few calories. You feel like you're eating so much food.
Yeah, yeah. I know I'll get full, I'll eat a very rich, lots of vegetables, lots of whole grains meal. And I'm like, whew. And especially if I'm drinking water, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
Water can help fill your stomach. And it's like, man, I am full. I get hungry quickly. I mean, even when I ate meat a long, long time ago, I'm just like my metabolism is quick. So then it's like, okay, a couple hours later, I'm ready for the next meal. But it's crazy how full you'll feel and how your body is getting the needs it needs as far as like the nutrients and those micronutrients and macronutrients and stuff. And it's as opposed to like the French fries, like you're saying, you're not getting any nutrients from that. Sure, it tastes good, but it's like your body is still like craving the nutrients that it needs.
It's so true. And I am a member of the Clean Your Plate Club. I hate food waste. I'm a volume eater, and this has allowed me to be able to eat high volumes of food and really feel full, but at the same time manage my weight, which has been really cool. And still, now as I'm, in perimenopause, even build muscle. So I know I'm getting the right amount of protein. And while I'm still managing my weight. So it's kind of been a really cool balance. I will have to share with you guys some pictures of what I ate at one of the Plant Strong retreats where they do this week-long immersion. And I was eating 2 full meals at every meal. And I thought for sure I was going to gain weight. I ended up losing 4 pounds. It was incredible. But like, if you see the volume of food I was eating, and sometimes I would even go back for more, but it was, huge salads, and then you're loading up on broccoli, and you might have your main, I did like potatoes with a chili and like a cheesy sauce. But you're eating so much volume of these water-filled foods. You're feeling like you're eating, and then you might just be putting some like really nice balsamic vinegar on your salad. So you still feel like it's dressed, but you're not getting like the hundreds of calories that could come from a oil or cream-based dressing or like dairy-based dressing. So it is amazing how you can eat and feel full and still lose weight.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like the next topic in my outline here is high versus low calorie density foods, which we've been touching on this whole time. But that's a good mention. Sauces, and dressings, when they're traditional from the grocery store, if you look at the ingredients, it's not healthy whatsoever. Very high in fat, very high in calories. And it's like, that's just empty. Like, you're not, again, like what you're saying with the oil, they're not really satiating yourself. So being able to just put something that just gives it a little flavor, like the balsamic, goes a long way, and you're actually feeling full. So I love that as far as like the Plant Strong retreat, and just a great experience from just last week of the quantity of food, and you still lost 4 pounds. That's awesome.
I know, it is amazing. And I do tell people, look, I still go out to eat, but I'm much more aware of if I'm getting the dressing from the restaurant. Now you do the old Weight Watcher trick of asking for the dressing on the side. So then I can control how much goes on it. And one of the things that really brought this home for me is I was eating a Panera salad, and it had a little bit of hummus, and it did have some cheese so I said no cheese. And then I was looking at the calories online, because you can see, the calories and fat and all the nutrient information. It still had 35 grams of fat and like I don't remember how many calories, lots of calories. And I'm
Yeah.
like, where is all this fat coming from? It was from the dressing.
Oh,
So now I just get it with either without the dressing, or, I just bring some with me, sometimes I'll just bring a little extra hummus with me and use that.
hmm
But it's like so hidden. And here I thought I was doing so great because it had just hummus and it was veggies and had a whole grain farro on it. And then I look online and I'm like, wow, it had a ton of hidden fat and calories that you never would have known.
yeah, dressings and sauces are sneaky, but there are ways, in the first episode we talked about whole food plant-based eating and what that means. You can make whole food plant-based dressing and sauces, and it's like you mentioned a cheese sauce from your retreat. I make cheese
Yeah.
sauce all the time. Amazing, adds so much flavor, and it's
Yeah.
made with very clean, simple ingredients, and we can share those recipes with you guys. But kind of touching on something you said before, and then keeping, with the low versus high density calorie foods,
Yes.
potatoes. I feel like you mentioned the broccoli versus French fry analogy, which I think is a wonderful analogy. Potatoes, I feel like get such a bad rap when you fry them,
Totally.
like what you're talking about. 400
Yeah.
calories, that's insane, or 500 calories, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's not going to help on the health goals. Of course, French fries here and there. It's not like a deal. I still have French fries here and there.
Yeah.
But like potatoes themselves are very good for you. Not high in calories. Like I love like just microwaving, ideally oven baking a potato, some seasoning, some broth, especially with
Yeah.
a cheese sauce or with chili. I mean, there's ways to do potatoes because potatoes are super filling, low calorie, high,
Yeah.
high calorie or low calorie density, but you feel full. And so it's just a
Mhm.
matter of not putting butter, sour cream, cheese, bacon on them,
Right.
or frying them into French fries, but just having it
Yeah.
in healthier ways. And same with pasta. You mentioned pasta. It's like those two foods I feel like get a bad rap, and it's like you can eat them. It's just modifying it and keeping them not minimally processed, which is the whole idea with whole food plant based eating.
I agree totally. I think people demonize the potato when it's
Yeah.
really they're adding sour cream and bacon and butter and all these like extremely high fat, calorie dense toppings. And then they're saying, well, the potato is what's making me fat. It's the literal all the toppings that are
Yeah.
so high in fat. And one thing that we have to remind everybody is fat has 9 calories per gram, and carbohydrates and protein have 4. So it's
It's a big jump.
over double the amount of calories in the same volume of food if you're eating foods that are high in fat. So that's why eating peanut butter, it's so delicious. But if you eat 2 little tablespoons of peanut butter and you're eating, well over 200 calories,
Yeah.
whereas if you eat the powdered peanut butter that just has the fat removed, you're still getting the 7 grams of protein, but I think it's like 40 or 50 calories and 1 gram of fat
Yeah.
versus I think 16 grams of fat.
Yeah.
So just these small little tweaks add up so much, and you'll feel full, but you're cutting so many calories out without even noticing it.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it too. You don't want to
Hmm.
be hyper focused or, counting every little thing. So just being able
Right.
to eat this way, which is a good lead into this next little segment here, is how to use calorie density in real life.
Yes.
I mean, we've touched on it along the way, but do you have anything else to add as far as how to help our listeners apply this to real life?
Oh my gosh, the peanut butter thing. It's because I'm a peanut butter fanatic, so that has been a huge one for me.
Yeah.
The other thing is really if you're doing the like pastas, instead of doing cream sauces, really going for the tomato based sauces.
Yeah.
Restaurants can be sneaky and add butter in there. So, this is where if you say, do you have a vegan tomato sauce? They'll give it to you without the butter. Um, and then if you're eating salads, like I love just doing a really nice balsamic vinegar or the 3-2-1 dressing, which is 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, two of mustard, and 1 maple syrup. So you're doing, the vinegar is the 3, the mustard is the 2. You can use any type of mustard, and then some kind of liquid sweetener, but I like maple syrup. And you could use agave. If you use honey, you could do that. But yeah, that is a really delicious dressing, no oil, and all of our participants love that dressing. So those are are some really big ones that I think just to pay attention to. And just also, if you're going to eat some of those high fat, high calorie foods, measuring those few foods out.
Yeah.
So you really see what a serving size of those foods is.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
What about you?
I was gonna say I don't think I've heard that like you just mentioned it, the 3-2-1. I've made
Mm,
dressings before that have those ingredients, but that's wonderful. That's easy to remember too. So
super
good
easy.
little tidbit. I guess my thing, just little thing to add to that is reading labels and understanding just as a whole, especially if this way of eating is new to you. I do think there's value in not the going crazy and, tallying everything unless you want to. Totally fine, but just
Yeah.
creating that awareness. And I know later episodes we'll talk more about nutrition labels, but building that awareness so you realize, because some people don't even realize that peanut butter is super high in calories and fat. So it's like building the awareness of what is in the foods that you're eating, and then you can start modifying. And, like we said, the plant-based whole foods, those are naturally lower in calories and you can have, higher density.
Mhm.
So just building that awareness.
I'm so glad you brought that up and also the smoothie thing. So when we start with the adding fruit, people ask if they can put them in a smoothie. The thing to keep in mind is that you could probably drink much more fruit than you'd be able to eat because
Yeah.
now the fiber has been kind of condensed down.
Yeah.
But where I think people struggle a little bit is then they start to want to add coconut based yogurt, and then they'll add like a third of a cup of nut butter,
Yeah.
and then they'll add some maple syrup, and then they'll add granola. I've seen all of this, and then they're like, I am gaining weight on the fruit week. And it's, because instead of 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, they're adding a third of a cup, and they're not realizing they're adding hundreds and hundreds of calories and fat grams because you don't even know it's such a small amount.
Yeah.
And watching those yogurts that are the coconut based yogurts because they're super high in fat and calories. So really focusing on if you're going to do a smoothie. I mean, I know you like to do a little bit of protein powder.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use Earth Chimp protein powder and add just, sometimes in the morning I'll just do like 1 scoop instead of 2 just to add some bulk.
Same.
But I add a little bit of unsweet soy milk from Trader Joe's, which just has organic soybeans and water in the container. And then sometimes I'll even add some greens like spinach or something. So if you're adding like spinach and blueberries, the blueberries kind of masks the color of the spinach, but you can, get some of those greens in, and they're so low in calories. So that's just something to be aware of in regards to adding fruit and also calorie density.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Good tips.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move into some common questions and misconceptions. So we already touched on one, which was the avocados and nuts. We're not saying you can't eat those at all, just being mindful. Right. Is calorie density the same as portion control?
Oh my gosh, no. I feel like it's the opposite. Yeah. So what's so interesting is there was a lady at that Plant Strong retreat I was just at, and she's a mindful eating coach. And which I think mindful eating is fantastic. Like sitting down, chewing your food, putting your fork down, drinking water, all great things for digestion. But I, again, am a volume eater, and I feel like I need a lot of food to fuel my activities. Yeah. So I feel like this way of eating, you don't have to count calories and you don't have to look at portions if you're focusing on those high nutrient, high water, high fiber, but low calorie plant foods. And you're just focusing on adding those in. Yeah. So in a couple weeks, we'll talk about negative calorie preloading. So you want to maybe start your meal with, the fruit or the vegetable, or maybe a brothy vegetable soup. So you're kind of getting a base and filling your stomach with those first. Yeah. And then you'll naturally feel fuller, but eat fewer calories in the entire meal. So we'll talk more about that later. But it is amazing how much volume you can eat when you're eating this way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I fully support that, and I agree. It's not the same as portion control. There's some value to that, but this is a whole new way of thinking as far as like eat. Don't
Yeah.
starve yourself. Eat. Just being aware of the calorie density
Yeah.
there.
I agree.
Another misconception, or I guess question: can I still eat out and enjoy treats?
Oh, yes. I think that's the most sustainable thing we can do. In fact, I was just talking to this gentleman that just graduated, a recent cohort of ours, and he is still eating everything. So
Yeah.
he's still eating animal foods, he's eating everything. And he's like, this is how I explain it to people. You've got 3 meals a day, and then you're eating all these meals this week, and then you're eating all these meals in a month and all these meals in a year. So if the majority of these meals are whole food plant-based, but then I decide I'm going to have a steak one day, or some French fries for a special occasion. And a special occasion isn't just like another Friday night, or
True. Yeah.
you have to kind of define and choose what your special occasion is. But if the majority of your meals you're eating, adding these whole food plant based foods in, and then you have that special occasion where maybe you're taking your 90-year-old grandmother out and she wants to share some fries with you, and you're like, okay, grandma, I'll have some fries. Or you've got your best friend that you haven't seen, and then you have this tradition, so you eat whatever they decide they want to eat. So those special occasions, you have to kind of determine that. But I think you've got to let yourself do that if you're eating whole food plant-based. Now, if you're deciding to be an ethical vegan, that's a different
Yeah.
discussion. But the more plant foods, the better.
Yeah.
And all that for animals' health and the planet.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say, I think it's whatever's sustainable too. So if you are, and some people are 100%, and that works well for them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's sustainable for them. I personally, I'm ethical vegan, would never have any interest in eating an animal or cheese.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd say 80% of the time, very whole food, plant based, healthy. Other 20% of the time, I'm getting an Impossible Burger with vegan cheese.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But I can kind of pull back and go back to the healthy eating. I think that's one potential problem I've heard from people is when
Yes.
they have that cheat meal, which I don't like to call that because this is sustainable
Right.
lifestyle. When they have that cheat meal or whatever you want to call it, then it's very hard for them to go back to the healthy way of eating, and it's just like a rabbit hole of a whole week of eating unhealthy, and then they slowly get back to it. And it's like it's just so much of this. So I think
Yes.
it's a matter, and maybe a coach would be a helpful person to talk to, or what I mean, everyone
Right.
is different. But I know for me personally, 80-20. And I usually don't feel that great if I have multiple
Right. Yeah.
unhealthy meals. So I'm like,
It's
I'm
such an
excited to
interesting
get back
experiment.
to
Yeah.
it. So
Oh my
I
gosh,
think,
same.
yeah,
Same.
I was gonna say that helps me
Yeah.
too.
I do think shifting away from that concept of this, whatever your idea of perfection is, and just thinking about eating in alignment with whatever your health goals are. So if your health goals are to, reduce your A1C, reduce your LDL cholesterol, reduce your weight, just feel healthier, eating the majority of your foods in alignment with your health goals, and then going into those times where you're going to eat something that's not in alignment with your health goals. So
Yeah.
eating the French fries or deciding you want to eat some Oreos or whatever, they're still vegan,
Yeah.
but just treating those almost more as like, enjoying the experience. But then, so we try to like talk about going into the holidays and kind of pre-planning what we're going to do, or deciding in advance, I'm going to have that treat. But
Yeah.
even if you kind of do it and you hadn't decided beforehand, really not beating yourself up and just using it as an experiment to consider how you're feeling after you eat it. Because sometimes the number of times you've eaten it and you start to realize, God, I really felt like garbage after I ate that.
Yeah.
That starts to give you that little feedback loop.
Yeah.
And so then you don't feel bad about it. And you're not like, oh, I totally failed, so I may as well give up. You're just like, okay, I'm going to enjoy this and I'm going to see how I feel.
Mhm.
And then I'll keep going.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, kind of having that self-awareness around what you're eating, and I mean, I think
Yes.
that helps the whole sustainability portion. If you're just mindfulness of the process, I guess. So
Totally, for sure. And just kind of having fun if you want to splurge on something. And then one of the things that I was thinking about doing was getting some of that Rebel cheese because
oh,
it's like
it's
a
good.
cashew-based
It
cheese
is good.
for Thanksgiving. So good, but it's so high in fat, so I
Yeah.
can only do
You,
it every now and then.
I was gonna say that stuff is amazing. We have a dinner event tonight,
Yeah,
and the gal that's hosting has the Rebel cheese. I can't wait. It's good, but again,
so
it's
good.
moderation. It's like and
Yeah,
some people do want to go 100%. I'm 80/20, and I think you're
yeah.
probably in that range as
I'm
well. So
probably, yeah, I'm probably about that. I try to do the best I can, but my family loves eating out. So, and my family also is not whole food plant-based. So,
yeah,
my husband is an omnivore and my daughter's kind of um, mostly whole food plant-based, but sometimes if she's out with friends, she might eat a little bit of seafood or
yeah,
so there's some things that she's not 100% plant-based on, but everybody's going to make their own choices.
yeah.
And we still go out and eat meals together at restaurants. We just make sure that there's going to be an option for me.
Yeah. Depending on the place, it's easier at some places than others.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Sometimes easier said than done for sure.
yes,
But
definitely.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, so that's our discussion on calorie density. Again, do you want to do a quick recap, Dawn, on what calorie density is? Kind of leave a little nugget of knowledge for our listeners before we wrap up today.
Yes. I think the key with calorie density, and it sometimes can take several looks at this to really get it to sink in. But just thinking about either, if you're looking at the same volume of food, how many calories are in that volume of food? So that's the chart that we're showing you.
Yeah.
But also thinking about, okay, for the same number of calories, how much food can I eat? So that's where you're thinking about, okay, I could either eat 500 calories in the McDonald's large fry or 16 cups of broccoli. What's going to make me feel more full and satisfied longer? It's probably the 16 cups of broccoli, and broccoli is a superfood.
Yeah.
So we're really, with this way of eating, thinking about adding in the more low calorie dense foods, but high nutrient, high fiber, high water foods.
Yeah.
So just going back to adding in as many vegetables as you can, fruits, whole grains, legumes,
Mm-hmm.
and then even enjoying some like whole grain or bean based pasta.
Mm-hmm.
And try not to necessarily focus on cutting out,
Yeah.
because then, every time we feel like we can't have something we want it more.
Yeah, it's a mental game.
Yeah, totally. So I would say that focus on your adding in on those low calorie dense foods.
Love it. Yes, I was going to say, I think just in general, the adding in rather than subtracting method is a good one.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening. This third episode, we will be talking about the My Plate method.
Yes.
So this is just a very helpful way of structuring our food in order to stay in alignment with this type of eating. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, please make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, all of that good stuff. Let us know the types of things you want us to talk about. At the end of the day, we want to help you guys and share our knowledge. So let us know. Until then, we will see you guys next time.
Bye, everybody. See you next time.